Hello everyone, welcome to the episode 96 of SoLeadSaturday. Our today's guest is tracing Dr. Pearson's career trajectory. The prevailing theme is that she is a natural teacher in a classroom teaching at a research university, in a courtroom in front of a judge explaining a novel issue, with individual coaching clients who need help solving their own challenges in an organization, identifying the problems leadership and management couldn't recognize, let alone the impact it was having on the employee or employees, as well as the risk it posed for the organization and through public speaking appearances in person, on radio, or on television. Dr. Pearson's passion is helping another person learn or understand something they didn't before, and the most importantly, changing their perspective. When she was working on her doctorate in education in organizational change and leadership, Dr. Pearson sought an outside expert to sit on her committee, someone who could think practically about the problem of implicit bias as applied to the profession she was examining. Truth, the expert was a skeptic until they read the first three chapters of Pearson's dissertation. The expert told both Dr. Pearson and the other members of the dissertation committee she changed the expert's mind. Wow, this sounds really amazing. And just to add to it, she holds two PhDs, PhD in law and PhD in education. So I'm really very excited to hear more from her. So let's just welcome her and hear more about her career journey. How did she find her area of interest and managing to lead that? Hey, hi Tracy. Very happy to have you on the show and really appreciate all your time and consideration being on the show.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's all my pleasure actually. I'm really looking forward to this episode. Moving towards our first segment, or start with our first segment, which is more about passion or the interest. So, when I looked into your background, actually, you did two PhDs, one in the education, one in the law. And the question is like, how did you find your areas of interest, like, into different fields, and what motivates you to be where you are today?
Sure. It's a really great question. I wish that I could say that, my career trajectory, that it was something that was in a straight line, but it wasn't. I started out interested in becoming a teacher, and sort of hopped up from being interested in high school teaching to college teaching, went off to graduate school and really sort of discovered my problem solving skills. And from there, I went to law school. I was in graduate school on my way into a PhD program in English. And after a couple conversations with my advisor, we really realized that it was probably a better match for me to go to law school. So I transferred into law school and proceeded with learning about the law and becoming an attorney, and then jumped back into education to teach. And then ultimately later in life, it became something where those two things combined.
Wow, that's great actually. And as actually in the introductory part, we have said that, you are the first one, I guess, in your entire family to have those, kind of a profile, pursue your PhD and everything, go to the college. So how was that actually? How much was your family support when you tried to get into this particular zone?
Sure. My background, I have a law degree and I have a doctorate in education, so an EDD. My parents didn't go to college. My mom didn't finish high school, but they valued education. They valued learning. I read a lot as a kid under the covers with the flashlight. But ultimately, it was the support of the McNair Scholars Program that landed me in graduate school. I was a first-generation low-income student, and it was through earning that federal fellowship that gave me the support that I needed to go off to graduate school and then law school.
Wow, that's great actually. And this is interesting, when I saw that, my background is also similar to that. My mom didn't learn much after high school. She also left. But yeah, when it came to the kids, I think she tried to give those values and, more like, inspired or motivated us to pursue the further education. So thank you so much for sharing this story, because this is definitely inspiring to all the students out there who are struggling or who are looking as, sometimes it happens that people, rather than looking into opportunity, they try to focus on the problems, that I don't have this or I don't have that. So I think new generation, they have a lot of things, because a lot of parents are educated in for the next generation actually. So this is definitely very motivating and inspiring, and thank you so much for sharing. Moving towards our next segment, which is questions from the audience. And your profile is very vast, like, you work when you pursued your PhDs in the law and education, and um, after doing the PhD, actually, you tried your to expand your horizons into three different sections, which is one is like a commentator in the legal or other areas, or you are a researcher as well as you do the consulting. So we have our first question along, legal front actually. So share what method you use to analyze and interpret news and information received from various sources to be able to broadcast the information on legal front.
That's a really great question. The first thing that I do is I look at what the facts are, and I differentiate between what facts are versus what an opinion is. I think that's something that's really important to learn to do. Right now in the news, we have a lot about Facebook and disinformation, and trying to figure out what is real and what isn't. And I start with what are the facts and what are someone's opinions about those facts. Once I've discerned what those facts are, then I fall back to my education and my training. As an attorney, I've been trained in a very specific way in how to analyze information. I have a second toolbox, a bag of tricks, if you will, from my graduate education and program in how to analyze information, how to discern whether something is reliable, whether it's valid. And I sort of bring all those tools together in trying to understand an issue or a problem.
Wow, that's great actually. So you have tried to take the balance, and as well as finding out that advantage of having that background and bringing it to the profession. So that's great to hear. One more question that we have is that, why do you think accountability is important when it comes to personal or the professional growth? How are they interlinked?
Sure. Accountability is really important to me. And I think that when we think of accountability, we think about holding people who have done something wrong accountable. But accountability is important in professional and personal lives. I see it as something that's in a continuous loop where if I set a goal for myself, and so I have made an agreement with myself to accomplish something. And if I'm going to do that, I have to hold myself to that agreement. And that ultimately is accountability. When it comes to a professional circumstance, I look at you need resources to accomplish a goal, and you need support, resources, anything that can help you get there. And that's not something, some of it comes intrinsically, it comes from me, some of it comes extrinsically, it comes from other sources. So the folks that are in a superior position to me, or in a more powerful position to me, that are there to support me, I have to hold accountable to providing that support. I can't just sit there and expect that it's going to tumble down on me. So likewise, they're going to hold me accountable for meeting the expectations that they have. And ultimately, it's an agreement that we have together to hold each other accountable for the parts that we play in that.
Wow, that's great actually. And definitely this is a very important quality to have actually, whether it comes to your personal life or the professional life. It's very, very important that you consider yourself accountable when it comes to your plate, rather than, pointing out to the other person. So this is very important attitude or the quality to have. And thank you so much for sharing the importance of it. Moving towards our one more segment, which is like an intermediate segment or the relaxation or fun segment. where what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 keywords which are more or associated with your profile or the career, and you have to just tell me whatever comes to your mind. So it can be a abstract definition, it can be a replacement keyword, or if you would like to be creative after hearing all those 3 words and combine and come up with something creative, we are welcome to hear that as well. So are you ready?
Yes, a little nervous, but yes.
No, you are great actually. The way I'm hearing you, you're already doing great. So thank you so much. So the first keyword that we have is organizational change.
Organizational change. Employers.
Mm-hmm.
That's what comes to mind. I think it's something that employees deal with all the time, and there's some requirements to doing it well, including communication.
Wow, that's great. Second keyword that we have is law.
Law. I think the first concept that comes to mind are the courts. That's the primary place where we understand how law is applied.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And then the third keyword is research.
Research. I think that the first word that just came to mind was vaccine. And primarily because there are folks out there that are doing research. They claim they're doing research about vaccines, and they really aren't. They're Googling, and that's not doing research.
Yeah, that's true. So thank you so much for sharing and being impromptu. Moving towards one more section, which is more about exploring your career work or volunteering and knowing you more. So as we explored a couple of things associated with your academic background or the profession that you are in, what you do right now. There is one more important aspect to you is that you host a podcast. So tell us more about your podcast. The Devils is in the details, and what is it about?
Thank you. Yeah, The Devil's in the Details. It's a podcast that you can find anywhere you find great podcasts, including Audible and Spotify and iHeartRadio and all sorts of places. But it is a show that I started for the purpose of trying to get behind concepts that were in the news that the news wasn't covering adequately. So as an example, one of the first episodes I did was on pardons. And for folks to understand what pardons are and how they work. The most recent episode right now is on whistleblowers, and I happen to be ahead of the curve on that. I wasn't aware of the Facebook story that was coming out. It was actually a week or so ago that I released it, and it's a first attempt at trying to sort of understand whistleblowing from a basic standpoint, and I think that. I use it as an opportunity to help out legitimate journalists that are trying to get information out there, but they're just restricted on time. And I'll be moving into having guests on the podcast soon. And so if anybody's interested, they can obviously tweet me at Tracy Explains. But it's something that I started because it just seemed to me that there was a lack of knowledge out there, and if you're going to form opinions about things, you need to have facts, and to have facts, you need to learn things. And this was a way to help people learn things on a larger scale.
Yep. And I definitely can see it because, the way you are leading or the way you have that academic experience, plus that you are bringing it to the profession, definitely you can, bring that better knowledge feeling whenever there is a need, because I think education and law, both the areas where, you need that kind of a thing where people will not just fall for what the majority crowd is going through. It is more about filling the gap and finding out that there are ways to, fill that gap as well. So thank you so much. And I would encourage audience actually to check her podcast, as well as you can just simply follow her on Twitter, which is Tracy Explains. And once the episode is out, I will also be happy to share the links whichever are there. So thank you. And moving towards next segment, which is more about tips or advice, and here you can support your answer with books or courses. So any tips or advice would you like to give to the students or the professionals who are looking to get into this particular field? Either you can consider it as a commentator or the consulting or the researcher, and looking this as their long-term career option.
Sure. I think that one of the most important things to do is to watch other commentators, to see how they do things, and to see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. You can't copy people. It just doesn't work. It has to be authentic. But I think that it's really important to understand, some basic skills and to watch how they deliver those skills. Looking into the camera, speaking comfortably, finding your voice. I think that you need to really find a niche, find something that really interests you. For me, my niche ended up becoming investigations and implicit bias. That's what came out of graduate school and law school, and over a decade of practicing law and doing investigations. So I think that you need to find a niche and market yourself toward that niche so that you can find a place for yourself, in the market.
Yep. And I think you have given very appropriate approach as well, how they can lead their area of interest. So we are moving towards our last segment, which is more about leadership. And the way you're speaking, definitely it shows your leadership. So tell us more about, your leadership style and any specific leader that you always follow or admire and why.
Sure. I would describe, my leadership style has shifted over the years. And I think that most people's leadership style does shift over the years if you're learning and you're growing. Yes. Mine tends to be towards, I consider myself an authentic leader. I'm somebody that you'll know where you stand. I like to be clear and I like to be myself. I don't try to pretend to be somebody I'm not. And that's really important to me. It's important to me for the people that I work with, and it's important to me for myself. You just can't carry it on. I also think that I am somebody who is both a servant leader and a transformational leader. From a servant standpoint, I think that, when you're a leader, you have a lot of power. And I've been in situations where it's abundantly clear that the leaders above me didn't understand what to do with that power or had it misdirected. And so when you have a lot of power, you have to be really careful about what you do with it. And so my choice is to try to help other people around me as much as I can. As far as transformational leadership, I like to try to inspire people to want to come along with me. You're not a leader if nobody's coming along with you, or if they're resisting you. And I think that it's, that's a style that I've developed over the years. I think you bring people into whatever it is that you're doing, because you don't have to have a title as leader to be a leader. We are all individual leaders. But you bring people in and you rely on them for what they're capable of doing and what they know how to do. You don't bring in people who can do what you do. That doesn't serve any purpose. So I'm collaborative in that way. As far as leaders that I admire, there's several. I can't say there's one, because I think they all do something different. For me, generally, I admire people who are willing to speak truth to power, because it's hard. I think that people who are resilient and take chances, like Hillary Clinton and all that she's accomplished and endured in trying to accomplish those things, make her a really good example of that. Someone like Rachel Maddow lives authentically. She doesn't try to be somebody she's not. She wears the $17 blazer from JCPenney, if that's what works for her. And does what she knows how to do the way she knows how to do it. Somebody like Valerie Jarrett, who was in the Obama administration as a senior advisor, who recognized that there was inequity in the room when they were in the Oval Office and that women weren't being heard, and said, I've got to solve this problem, and came up with the idea of amplifying each other's messages so that when women would speak, they would give a nod to the other women in the room so that their voices would in fact be heard over the din of the others. And I also think that I admire people who are really become masters at their craft. People who are able to become masters in their craft and who inspire other people with their message. And a really great example of that is a woman by the name of Dr. Marsha Reynolds. She's certainly known within the professional coaching community, but she may not be known sort of writ large. And she has some really great books on coaching the person, not the problem, and a book called Wander Woman that is phenomenal. But she's somebody who became a master at what she does, and has created legions of followers and who set off to adopt a coaching methodology that people use today very successfully.
Wow, that's amazing, actually. And I think authenticity is the best policy to have in any field, not like just the leadership, but everywhere it is true that if you're authentic enough, you can excel very fast, and you can get the love, like, support from the audience as well in return. And one more important aspect that you mentioned about the leadership, and I found it very interesting because I heard a lot about the servant leadership in past episodes. But as you mentioned, the combination of having the servant leadership plus the transformational thinking, like, leader who stands for both serving as well as transforming something into the good. So that is definitely like a great combination to have. And thank you so much for sharing it, because I think this is one of the best answers I have received. So thank you. And I really appreciate all your time and consideration. And once the episode is out, I will definitely keep you tagged so that you will get to know as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So this is all about Tracy and the way she is managing to lead her area of expertise. Before we close, we have the closure quote, as we are talking a lot more about purpose and the perspectives. The quote is from Sidney J. Harris, and it says, "The whole purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows." On that quote, we are closing today's episode. See you guys in the next episode. Until we meet, happy leading. Let's lead together. Stay safe. Bye for now.